Laurel, it's Terry Saris? Saris?
Correct.
Thanks. Okay, thanks, Terry. I saw you were muted. Okay. So far, I've not seen it. I see 3 attendees. Do we have folks? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Good evening. If you can, I'm seeing 3 attendees. If if you're dialed in and can see and hear me. My name is Charlie Bailey. I'm a land use attorney with the law firm Williams Parker. And if I would appreciate you joining us tonight. If you would just please bear with us as we afford a little additional time for any other attendees to join us tonight. Just want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to get in. Terry, as our traffic controller, how soon do you think everybody would have had an opportunity to click on and join us?
Actually, by now, it's been a couple of minutes. Everybody who would have been in the waiting room would be in already.
Okay. Okay. Typically, if this were an in-person workshop, we would go ahead and begin as we're a couple minutes beyond the start time. Laurel, do you think it's okay to go ahead and start? Or should we wait a couple more minutes?
Yeah, just given technology, why don't we just give folks another couple of minutes?
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So those of you already with us, thanks for bearing with us. We're kind of exploring life with virtual meetings. And so thanks for bearing with us. Okay, 6:04. We may wait one more minute. And actually, I think we've lost an attendee. Oh no. Someone got bored already. Okay, we're gonna just wait.
I'd say go ahead.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
We're coming up out here on 6:05. So again, I'm Charlie Bailey. I'm a land use attorney and partner with the law firm of Williams Parker. And appreciate y'all joining us for this public hearing, what we might normally think of as a community workshop or neighborhood workshop like you'd see for development approvals in the city of Northport. But this is a a public hearing or community workshop held in connection with a redevelopment area designation, a brownfield designation under Chapter 376 Florida statutes in connection with the cleanup activities that are going to occur on the former Sabal Trace Golf Course being redeveloped as Central Park at Northport. With me as part of the presentation team tonight on behalf of Sabal Trace Development Partners, LLC, is a familiar face to you, Peter Van Buskirk, a professional engineer and planner with the Kimley Horn and Associates firm. Again, I'm Charlie Bailey, land use attorney with the law firm Williams Parker. And then also with us is Laurel Lockett, attorney with the Carlton Fields law firm in Tampa, who is an environmental lawyer and specializes in the processing of applications like this, which we filed with the city of Northport. We also have with us Nicole Galehouse, of the city plan department, probably a name very familiar, and person very familiar to those who are attending. Also with us are Terry Saris, who is with the Carlton Fields firm. He's the information technology officer who has helped us arrange this virtual meeting tonight. And also Stacy Miller, who is a court reporter who's actually up in Wesley Chapel, who will be preparing a transcript of this workshop tonight, which will be filed with the city of Northport to be made a part of our application for this brownfield designation. Tonight, we're going to go through like a normal workshop. If we were together in person, we're going to walk through just a PowerPoint that's going to be just a very brief PowerPoint. If you watched or were present at the Northport City Commission meeting back on October 13, it'll sound like Groundhog Day. It'll be redundancy, department redundancy. It's the same information we shared then, but we've got an opportunity to answer questions for at the end. And the way we're going to, I should say, and also in addition to our filing a transcript of the workshop tonight, Terry Saris is going to work with Nicole Galehouse to provide a recording of the workshop, which will be placed as a link on the Central Park at Northport page that Nicole and folks at the city of Northport have placed on the city of Northport website. So if you would like to go back and watch the workshop tonight or direct others to watch it, it will be available there. And then whereas in a normal workshop when we're in person, we're going to walk through the presentation, and at the end of the presentation, there'll be an opportunity for you to ask any questions or make any comments. And the way we're going to do that is if you are on your computer now and new to or familiar with Zoom, but if not use this feature or function, if you take your cursor and place it at the bottom of the screen, you'll see some things pop up. It says participants, Q&A, chat, and so forth. We're going to use the Q&A feature. So if you have questions or comments, what we're going to do is at any point during the presentation, feel free to type in a Q&A, or when we get done, if we don't have any, feel free to use Q&A to type in a question or comment. And whether we have some or not, when we get to the end of our presentation, we'll pause for a minute or two to allow you to click on that feature and type in your question and make sure that we have a chance to receive it. I'll read it aloud, and then one member of our team, the appropriate person, will seek to answer that question. So, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and seek to use the share screen to pull up the PowerPoint. Can y'all see that, Peter? You see is it up on the screen? I don't trust myself.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, so for those of you who are familiar with the project, that you were with us perhaps back in 2018 and 2019 as Peter and I worked to process before the city of Northport a series of applications that involved a comprehensive plan amendment, an amendment to the ULDC, a rezoning that was followed by a development master plan that were approved back in July of 2019. All of them except the development master plan was approved after the comp plan amendment became effective in September of 2019. And that was for the 207-acre former Sabal Trace Golf Course that we're proposing to redevelop as with a development master plan as shown on the screen, which has 2 residential phases that will total 500 up to 500 dwelling units, and a mixed-use component that's got two elements transected by the internal access road, a mixed-use component that could have some commercial uses, perhaps an assisted living facility, and up to 100 multifamily units. The project I just described is what was approved by the city of Northport last year in 2019. Nothing about this process that we're going through will in any way, shape, or fashion modify or alter those approvals that the city granted back in 2019. As part of that process with the city of Northport, if you followed that or were involved in it, you know that a component of it was that like most, not a component of the approvals, but one matter that we considered and looked at as we processed those approvals was arsenic on the property, which is it's naturally occurring, but it's one that you see oftentimes where the arsenic levels are often exceed what's allowed for development based by virtue of of the fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides that were used over time. In the numerous golf course redevelopments we've seen in Sarasota County and across the state, most of them had this very same issue, and many of those were also designated brownfields as part of the cleanup process that we're now undertaking. When those entitlements were approved or processed by the city of Northport, they were conditioned upon our obtaining an interim source removal work plan from FDEP that provides the manner in which the cleanup is to occur. And before we can commence construction, before we can get our construction authorization from the city of Northport and then commence construction, we have to have that interim source removal work plan issued by FDEP. And as you'll hear, as part of this brownfield designation process, it will result in what's called a BSRA, a BSRA acronym, BSRA, which is a Brownfield Site Rehabilitation Agreement. And that interim source removal work plan that we discussed that FDEP needs to issue is a component of that BSRA that will result following this designation. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just walk through the PowerPoint if I can. So the screen shows the development master plan that was approved by the city of Northport. And we're just going to kind of walk through in a little greater detail the process that we're undertaking for the Brownfields redevelopment program under Chapter 376 Florida statutes. What is a brownfield? Brownfield is real property, the expansion, redevelopment, or reuse of which may be complicated by actual or perceived environmental contamination. In this case, it's the arsenic that we discussed during the development plan review process. The brownfield process involves under Chapter 376 Florida statutes. It provides essentially, it requires, first of all, that when it's requested by a private party, although it's a state process, it involves us interfacing with the state of Florida and FDEP. It requires that we first go before the applicable local government to have them first designate it as a brownfield. And so that's why we have filed our application back in September. This application was filed with the city of Northport and is being processed by the city. And the application that we've submitted demonstrates the 5 criteria that you need to hit under state statute. And those are shown on this slide. That is the responsible party, which is not the city of Northport. City of Northport undertakes or accepts no responsibility or has no obligations as part of the cleanup. The responsible party is Sabal Trace Development Partners, the developer of the property, and the applicant for this this request. We've got to demonstrate that 5 new permanent jobs will be created, and of course we've got the mixed use component, which will generate, we expect, far in excess of those 5 jobs. that the redevelopment itself will be consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, of course, as demonstrated by the entitlements that we have in place that required that consistency analysis, that the designation is properly noticed. If, as I mentioned at the outset of our discussion tonight, that on October 13, we went before the City Commission. One of the reasons that we had to do that was to meet one of the notice requirements that we have this workshop, this public hearing community workshop announced at that meeting. We also had to post the property, and we also had to publish an ad in the newspaper to provide that notice as we go to the City Commission. And then we also have to provide in our application reasonable assurance of financial viability that Mark Geringer, the principal of Sabal Trace Development Partners, and his entity has the wherewithal to financially to carry out the cleanup, which is included in our application. I think with that, I'm going to turn it over now to Laurel Lockett, again, environmental attorney, partner with the law firm of Carlton Fields in Tampa, just to kind of walk you through the process once the designation is made.
Okay, so once we complete this designation process, then the city will transmit the resolution to the DEP, to the State Cleanup Agency. And that resolution then allows us, and designation allows us to enter into this, as Charlie said, it's the BSRA. We have a huge number of alphabet soup type things in environmental, but that's the buzzword for this agreement called the BSRA. So that basically allows us to dovetail the cleanup activities with the redevelopment activities in a way that's cost effective and allows us to establish key milestones, for a project of any kind of substantial size, such as this would be. So I know one of the things Charlie mentioned was this interim source removal activity. As this project proceeds, that's one of the critical milestones, a plan for the detailed remediation of each area of the site and how the soils are going to be managed. So that's kind of a critical component of it. All of this is going to be managed under the direction of the South District DEP. The DEP is divided into various districts and parts of the state, and the local district will oversee it in coordination with headquarters. The assessment activities at this site have been going on for a couple of years, and we're very much sort of in midstream, but I think getting towards the conclusion of it. So there's been assessment of soil and groundwater issues on the site, and right now we're in the process of doing a very detailed and granular evaluation of different areas of the site so that we can develop that interim source removal plan that needs to be approved. One of the challenges we have everywhere in Florida, but certainly South Florida and Sarasota County has sort of well-known naturally occurring, I'll say higher levels of arsenic in soils. And that's just because the marine critters that make up the limestone that's the base of our soil, arsenic bioaccumulates in those soils, in those shells, and then it breaks down, and so we have it in our soils. So, okay, we have a golf course, and obviously, keeping those tee boxes and greens clean and free of pests and weeds, agrochemicals get applied on those. So we have over and above, so beyond what's naturally occurring, we have, some incremental amount of arsenic that's been introduced by those treatments over the years. So all of that is going to have to be excavated or blended down with other soils that are lower in concentration so that every area of the site meets the soil standard which is applicable for that end use. So like every residential lot will meet the residential standard, the commercial areas will meet the commercial standard. And that's kind of the process that's followed. While I say, our concentrations in tee boxes and greens are elevated, I mean, to really put it into perspective, I'll tell you that These concentrations are less certainly than other naturally occurring concentrations throughout the state, and by far and away much, much lower than other parts of the country. So it's all relative, but as to our standard and what's normal here, we have just a slight amount that we have to address. So the BSRA, allows us, as I said, to sort of tailor our cleanup and the process and to develop key milestones that will facilitate a project of this size. I mean, looking at the acreage, it's a large project, and there's a lot to do, and it'll be done in phases. On the soils, we are expecting that in some areas we're going to have to excavate. In some areas we will blend some soils, with other, deeper soils or other soils that are lower in concentration in order to meet that criteria. And maybe in some areas, soils will have to be moved, from one area to another in order to meet the standards. But that's all under the direction of DEP. We also have groundwater impacts from arsenic. It's very common, naturally occurring. We don't really know how much of this is naturally occurring versus as a result of the application of pesticides on the site. But that will be addressed by institutional controls, basically a restriction on installing a potable well in any of those areas, which you probably are required to connect to municipal water, I'm sure, for the development. So it's kind of a non-issue, but that's a component of the remedy. So that's really the process. We're close to, I would say within a month or two of being able to submit the detailed plans for how each little area will be addressed. Last thing is, in terms of, this is really a win-win for everybody. This has been one of the most successful programs that the state of Florida has had in terms of economic development. There are literally hundreds of sites that have gone through this. And, when you look, you address the environmental issues, you put properties back on the tax rolls, which is hugely beneficial for the local government. And you also have the job creation that kind of goes with it. So it's and the developer gets some incentives, most notably, there's some tax credit assistance for the costs that they've incurred to do the cleanup. So it's a tremendously successful project. It results in economic growth, and it's really kind of a win-win for everybody. So I think at this point, we're just going to open it up for questions.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have any so far.
One thing before we open a question, I just would like to note that we mentioned that this requires approval by the city commission, a resolution that would serve to designate the brownfield. And so those two hearings will be held requires two hearings. The two hearings will be held before the city commission on October 27, 2020 at 6 p.m. and November 10, 2020 at 10 a.m. Both of those hearings will be held at City Hall, City Commission Chambers at 4970 City Hall Boulevard, Northport, Florida, 34286. We'll again go back before the City Commission to have them consider the adoption of the resolution designated as a brownfield. So with that, I think we'd be happy to take any Q&A now, and I see we do have a Q&A from Scott Bruni, and he has 4 questions. First question, is this required or requested? I'll read the 4 questions out, and then we can kind of take them top to bottom. 4 questions. Is this brownfield designation presumably required or requested? Was this requirement known at the time of approvals? If yes, why wasn't it explained to the public then? 3, what impact stigma for surrounding homes is expected? Can you give similar examples of brownfield designation in residential area? And can the cleanup be done without the brownfield designation? I think I can hit really questions 1, 2, and 4. So is this required or requested? It is something that we knew we were going to do. It is part of the cleanup that we were proposing for the site as part of the interim source removal work plan. And really, the purpose of this is largely is the Sabal Trace Development Partners is motivated by this because they're going to be expending a solid 7 figures to undertake the cleanup. And one of the benefits of having this redevelopment area designated is that Sabal Trace Development Partners will be able to recoup, we hope, a portion of that by receiving a tax credit in the form of Florida corporate income tax credit. Nothing to do with the city of Northport at all, but it would allow the applicant, that is the developer, in expending the substantial sums to get the BISRA and interim source removal work plan approved, and then undertaking the work of removing soil and performing the remediation, allow them to recoup a portion of those substantial costs. So it is being requested at this time, which is when you typically do it. You don't do it until you know that you are capable of undertaking the redevelopment that includes the cleanup. In terms of the impact or stigma for surrounding homes expected, can you give examples of brownfield designation in residential area? I'm going to ask Laurel to help me with this, but I do know that the FDEP has a brochure that is on the city website, and there are numerous examples of golf courses that have been designated as brownfields in order to be cleaned up. And this is a brownfield, but a redevelopment area. And most of those, I can speak from personal experience, most of those golf courses are redeveloped for residential uses. And of course, we've got a mixed use project, but the majority of it is residential in nature.
Let me just add, this program has been in place since the late 1990s, and there are hundreds of successful redevelopment projects, and the state publishes an annual report to the legislature on, which is a cumulative report, which if that is not linked to the city website, we can certainly add a link to that. But you can look at a golf course redevelopment is probably about the most benign type of contamination site that is redeveloped. I mean, there's everything from, just heavy industrial sites that have been redone for mixed use and residential. So,
right.
And I think just in terms of, this was intended earlier, part of, the incentives, the economic incentives are a great motivator, but you really don't know until you kind of get into your assessment how significant those costs are going to be. And in this case, there's going to be quite a bit of work that's required.
Okay. So,
the last question is, could the cleanup be done without the designation? And yeah, theoretically, it could be done without the designation, but what the designation does is allow us to enter into a very detailed agreement with DEP that, allows us to tailor the cleanup to each specific area to come up with phasing of that work. It really, you can't undertake a project of this magnitude without kind of that sort of detailed milestone-driven agreement.
Right.
Or at least not efficiently.
Okay. That was all right. This is where we feel a little bit hampered by the being virtual. We're not able to make eye contact with you and quickly ask for follow-up question, but we hope that answered your 4 questions. I know that was sent at 6:12, so submitted some time ago, but if any of the others of you have questions, or if Scott Rooney, if you have some follow-up questions, we can pause for a minute now just to allow you to input those, because we want to give people ample time to, given the technology we're utilizing to participate. So we'll make pause now for about a minute or 90 seconds to give you time to use the Q&A to ask additional questions or make comments, please. So, okay, so Scott Bruni's asked the follow-up question. Was this known? What not told this up front? I guess why not told this up front? I think because we were focused on the entitlements themselves, and the question was what must be done as we were processing the application to the city of Northport. What is the permit that we need in hand to kind of carry out that would describe the details of the cleanup, which is the interim source removal work plan. But that is a component of the separate BISRUP that's entered, a prerequisite of which is having the area developed, in this case, as a redevelopment area. And we were careful in selecting that term to reflect that this is just not a brownfield, maybe in the sense that many people think of it, but this is just a redevelopment area. Unfortunately, that for whatever reason, the statute just kind of generically uses the term brownfield, but this is being technically designated as a redevelopment area.
Right, there's a question. Should we go to the question from Roy Smith?
Sure.
What impact, if any, is this development expected to have on home values surrounding the golf course land? There's the University of South Florida actually has a group that looks at these issues more broadly. And the general belief is that when you have economic development of this sort in an area, it increases the economic value of everything around it. I mean, you know, what you had before, you know, a golf course which is contaminated and sort of long blighted and fallow, and now this is going to be redeveloped. It will be a nucleus for redevelopment and investment in this area as a whole. In general, the experience is that results in increase in surrounding land values.
Okay, and then if you talk about the development, about the development itself, not just the remediation, but actually the resulting project. I mean, I think that was one thing the City Commission gave consideration to, in that this is like some other golf course redevelopments I've been involved in. Because they're not active for a period of time, they become blighted sites. They become a nuisance to the surrounding properties. I think the resulting project, if well done, as this one will be, serves to enhance the value of the existing homes that have had to kind of suffer through the downturn and the closing of the golf course, and so we think it'll be a vast improvement. So Scott Bruni asked a second question about but he asked a second question. So thank you. Have a much better understanding now. So Scott, it sounds like based on our efforts at throwing information out there that we were able to hit your question. If I'm going to pause for another minute just to make sure that we did answer your question sufficiently, or to see if you have any additional. Okay, all set. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. And thank you for bearing with us and muscling through the meeting being held in this format. We appreciate it. So, okay, I think that hits all the questions, all the Q&A, but just to make sure, we'll give you another minute just to utilize that Q&A. And if not, we'll just quickly, maybe provide a reminder of the dates and times of the City Commission meetings, the City Commission meetings at which the resolution will be considered for adoption. And we'll give you another minute. Okay, Roy Smith is asking a question. What are the timeframes for each phase of the project? I don't know if it's talking about the development or the remediation. I think he may be talking about the development. Maybe let's start answering that question if we can. I know we don't know the specific dates, but Peter, can you take a stab at when we think we're going to commence our first phase, which I believe is phase 1 of the residential?
Sure, Charlie. I mean, we are doing this project in phases, but we don't envision it will be a start-stop type of a phase. The reason we do it in phases is to get a certain number of lots prepared for building, so they can actually put homes on them. And what we have to do is get, of course, utilities in the ground, drainage in the ground. Those things have to be approved by the city, the water management district. You turn utilities over to the city, and then you can build homes. In the meantime, we're going on to the next phase of development and developing the next set of lots. So it very likely could be a continuous process. We think that the total process from start to finish is probably a 4 to 5 year development process.
Okay. And Roy, as you were answering that question, Peter, I don't know if you can see, but Roy confirmed, yeah, he was talking about the development. Scott Bruni is asking, has I think it's builder been secured for any component of the project?
Charlie, that I am not aware that any single builder has been chosen or is under contract to purchase any lots at this point.
Okay.
I think there's a couple, both being national builders, and I'm sure it could be open up to locals. Should Mark decide that might be a good direction to head in.
Yeah, I know that. I think and Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Sabal Trace Development Partners is undertaking the construction of the subdivision, that is putting in addition to doing the remediation, doing the building the infrastructure, the roads and the stormwater system, installing the utilities. And then there will be others, like I said, likely maybe perhaps a national builder like those seen in Parc, or a local builder that would likely take down phases or substantial portions of the phases. And I'm not aware that that's been locked down yet.
Yeah, that's correct, Charlie. There is no specific builder chosen yet, but you're right. All the land development is going to be done by Sabal Trace Development Partners, and then they will sell finished lots to builders or a builder who will, actually put the home on there for the end user.
Okay.
And I think the critical thing from the cleanup standpoint is that none of that will happen with respect to any of those individual lots until they've met DEP requirements and criteria. So that's why, the BISRA gives us this ability to kind of stage it up in phases and to get into that kind of granular level of detail.
Right. So none of the lots will be finished, and no homes will be will commence construction of no homes until FDP is satisfied. And right. Okay. I see no more Q&A. I may just wait. Tempt fate by maybe just asking for providing one more minute to see if anybody has any additional Q&A. And if you don't, but you think of something between now and the meetings before the city commission, feel free. She may kick me, but please reach out to Nicole Galehouse. If you would email her, we would expect her to field the question for us because it's our application. But if she can answer the question, knowing Nicole, she will. If she can't, she will pass it on to our team, and we will endeavor to get back to you an email or phone call as soon as possible to give you any additional information. So if it's something that you didn't think to ask tonight, but it pops into your head after tonight, certainly feel free to reach out. So maybe about 15 more seconds if we see if we see any more Q&A. Okay, there being none, we'll close out Q&A. Would just again restate that the two proposed public hearings will be held before the City Commission on October 27, 2020 at 6 p.m. and November 10, 2020 at 10 a.m. At City Hall. It'll be part of the normal meeting. So this item will appear on both of the agendas for both of those days. Those meetings will be held at City Hall in the Commission Chambers at 4970 City Hall Boulevard, Northport, Florida, 34286. We appreciate you very much being a part of the workshop tonight. Thanks for bearing with us, and as we're doing virtual meetings here during the pandemic. Thank you for being part of the workshop tonight. If you have any questions in the meantime, please reach out to Nicole, and we'll be back in touch with you stat. Otherwise, thanks for your time this evening. We appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody.